Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for all the work that you did last night. I just wanted to kind of go over the work that we did, and so that you're able to kind of move into this work this week and make sure that you're able to get everything done as well. So I'm going to take the video off and move that away from. And just a reminder, we went through the BREATHE acronym last night. We started out by talking about the Brown Center and the high suspension rates for Black and Latino students. And then we went into talking about cultural competence and then what our job is to within schools to address these issues. We did a body scan, kind of moving from the top of our head down to our feet, bringing attention to each part of the body and trying to figure out if we were holding on to any extra tensions. We looked at the research, the mindfulness research and the social emotional learning research that's out there. We talked a little bit about the trauma online and what we learned about the brain and how the brain doesn't work as well when someone's going through trauma. We did the 4 group readings, which I do recommend that you go through and take a look at those a little bit closer. They are really useful. We did a moment of silence and talked about looking out at nature. And then we talked about really looking at our thoughts and our reflections. And we read the case study, where we did that twice. Once you just heard it, the second time you read it, and we talked about kind of what are some of the things that were going on for us as we went through that case study. And then what our job is as a mandated reporter. And then concerning our suicidal behavior, if we have a student with any of those. We then went through talking about emotions and how we've actually gone through since the beginning of class, and actually since when you first started at USD, on all these different topics to kind of prepare us for the work that we were doing last night. We talked about secondary trauma and compassion fatigue, and if you see yourself kind of going through, or someone that you're working with or love going through any of these types of things, then one of the things that I don't know if I did mention explicitly is that if you are going through any of those things, then to go out and get help and some support is a really good idea. And once again, here's some warning signs of vicarious trauma, and that you will need some extra supports while these are going on. We talked about the emotion faces and then how we can make those age appropriate. Actually, I was on a phone call with my sister, who is a first grade teacher, and I listened to her as she went through and talked to her students this morning about if you're in the yellow zone, how can you help yourself get out of there? If you're moving closer to the red zone, what do you do? And she had her students writing a little paper on it. Then we went through and we talked about burnout and resilience, and that the first step is, of course, identifying exactly where you are on your level of burnout, and if you're experiencing any of these things, and really bringing attention to that so that you can then start taking care of yourself around that. So asking for help in all areas of your life, even the ones that you feel like are going pretty well, is useful. Surrounding yourself with nourishing and supporting people is also really good. And then coming up with some self-care strategies and promoting self-care and resilience, you actually adopt those strategies. And then sharing your plan with your support system so that you are more accountable. We talked about the EFT, and we did the tapping of our head, our fingers on our head and the different parts of our body. And then also repeating the setup statement. So that yes, you have these problems, but you're also, you are complete and working towards helping yourself. And then we talked about tenderness, and we had the example of the 2 people holding the book, one person holding it straight out, the other person taking little breaks. And usually the person taking little breaks is able to do things for a lot longer. Then we have we talked about the brain and emotions, and if we keep thinking or doing the same thing, then we just create these deep ruts, and we want to make sure to not do that. And also realizing that our emotions have an effect on our students, as do theirs on us. And so if we think about the mirror neurons and our response to other people's emotions, then we can also try to take care of ourselves around that as well. The activity we did, and this is how you get credit for being part of the module, was to write a letter to yourself, and I gave you the stationery and the envelope, and that's just due by next week. And then we just talked a lot about habits and practice, and really coming up with a way to continually do the things that we need to do. And then we ended with a closing meditation where we kind of wrapped ourselves up again. Some things that help, just high standards, empathy, consistency, repetition, predictability, structure and routine, clear boundaries, expectations and limits, maintaining a calm and safe demeanor, and making sure that all stakeholders have a critical reflection of themselves, others, and their practices. So these were the different activities we did with each one of the BREATHE acronyms. And then we wrapped ourselves up. So one thing I did do was I had added the case study to this week, and then I realized actually it doesn't go until next week, so I moved it to the next week's module, or week's folder, so that you will be able to turn it in after next week's class. I hope you have a beautiful weekend and you take really good care of yourself. Take care.